Oh, we're live.
Ryan is here.
Oh,
We're
it didn't do our intro. Oh, okay. We don't know what happened to our intro this week.
Whatever.
Because we had to take it down for Vive, so we have to reconnect it. It was the only way. I was in charge of it. That's why.
Welcome to the Health Tech Talk Show.
Welcome to the Health Tech Talk Show. Do you want to sing, Michael?
I mean,
what would you like me to sing?
I removed him because he
Under
messed
the
up
bridge
his,
of love.
Oh, jeez.
Where I live today.
Oh, wow.
Karaoke in Vegas. Hey, we got 10 days. Get your voice ready.
Okay, guys.
That's
this
true.
is the Health Tech Talk Show.
With your capitalist queen, Kat McDavitt, your social Lisa Berry, and special guest, Mac McClung, all here for Fridays at 4:30 to grab your favorite beverage and join.
Do you know?
I like the live version almost
you
better.
know who Mac McClung is?
I have no idea. I just saw the name.
I have no idea.
No idea.
Amazing.
No.
He's the 3-time slam dunk champion of the NBA All-Star Weekend. So, just a little kudos.
I know nothing about sports. I'm a mom that pushed everybody towards theater.
Sports ball.
For matching socks.
I'll change my name. What would you like me to be? Theater?
Barista
Theater? Timothy Chalamet? Like, where should I go?
I mean,
I do like his look. Like, I like his vibe. I like his overall vibe, I feel like, I'm into it. Yeah. Well, anyway, okay. We're just going to get started here. Lisa, what the heck?
Just got a funny email. Well, that's interesting. You guys, everyone, loyal fans. I don't know if something's wrong with Ryan's video, by the way, but we'll figure it out later. There he is. Okay. All right. Cool.
Jesus Christ! This email is this the same email you're just talking about?
If loyal fans, if you want to see us laugh, you send us a funny email right when we are about to go
just send us a funny email. We're probably going to read it, and we're probably
make a deal with that. Like propose something. We'll figure it out. So, basically, everyone, we are in the news apocalypse of our lifetimes right now. If you are a health policy dweeb or whatever, like this is your. I don't know. You're going to be overwhelmed by news. This is your time.
This is your time. This is your time. Yeah. So speaking of, here we go. Here we are. Another great. I think Max is like running a little. Like sometimes they get a little dry on the graphics. I think this is one of those times that they just decided to put a lot of stickers on this one, and you know what? I feel like it worked.
I'm into it.
I feel like it worked.
I'm into it.
All right. Holy shit. Well, okay. And loyal fans, as you may know from all the times you watch us live every Friday, and then randomly on some other days. Lisa sends me all of the news. So she is going to tell us what all the news means because I can't promise I read any of it. So anyway, actually, I did read this one. So Lisa, our friend Matthew Holt runs a healthcare blog, and Kim Ballard is a pretty frequent writer on the healthcare blog. And I think he's also on the healthcare blog gang, THCB gang. And seems like a pretty smart dude. So Lisa sent me this and said, OMG, this is good. And so we all read it. And Lisa, tell us more.
Yeah. So if you have a teenager who plays video games, you know what an NPC is. It's a non-playable character. And they're the background characters in games where you actually, move certain players around. And it is a great analogy for the role of patients in our healthcare system. So I just shout out to Kim. Like I sometimes you guys get a little bit off topic there in the healthcare blog, but this one was pretty on point in terms of the situation we are in today. When you think of all the varied business interests and how patients are still remaining after so many years, secondary or tertiary NPCs.
Yeah, but I will say sometimes healthcare blog does go a little bit off the chain. However, we are not anyone to talk since we are 97% off the chain.
That's right.
Yeah, this was pretty cool. So everybody should read it. And then another friend of the show, Kevin McGabby, wrote this piece in about here's the thing. I actually did read this one too, Lisa. Mostly I read these things because they're from our friends, so whatever. But which, by the way, is basically how politics works.
Right.
So someone you'll read their stuff. If you're not, you won't. So everybody stop writing letters. Everybody stop writing letters to the administration. No one reads them. At least that's what I assume.
Write us.
Anyways, yeah, write us. I mean, we'll read you. We're just reading emails live and laughing. So send us stuff. But so everybody saw they're trying to allegedly cut almost $1 trillion from various parts of CMS, but mostly looks like focus on Medicaid. And there's a lot in there, right? It's a lot that Medicaid does. And Kevin wrote this really good piece in the other 80, or no, what is it? 80 million, Jesus Christ.
80 million.
Jesus Christ.
The other 80,
I don't know.
Claudio,
The other 80,
the other 80 million, Manat. Easy
whatever.
enough.
See, just talking about more people we know here. It's all I've got in my head. But anyway, this was great because he actually highlights kind of a part of the cuts, the proposed cuts that not a lot of us really know about. So Lisa, tell us more.
Yeah, so President Trump said he did not want to cut Medicaid benefits, but then he later, him and other folks in his administration said that they were willing to cut things that would be, you know, signs of fraud, waste, and abuse. But if you don't cut benefits, what else can you cut? And that's the other thing that Medicaid spends money on, which is administrative and technology funding. And they do that through match rates, essentially. And those match rates are based on what's actually happening in a state, what the makeup of the population is, how big it is, what kind of supports they have. And there's different types of matching and cost sharing. And I'm not going to go into it now because you're all going to glaze over. But like this administrative and technology spending is actually really important for things like detecting fraud, waste, and abuse, exchanging health data, doing analytics work, things like that that really matter but aren't very sexy or well known. And this piece from Kevin really goes into detail about that. And it's really good, well written. Of course, Kevin writes, "Tech bros take note," which I appreciate. Shout out to Kevin. So this is a good one. Read this.
Yeah, this is good. And, you know, Kevin's like a pretty legit stand-up dude. So there's a, you know, he does know what he's talking about, but I also appreciated that at least for Kevin, there was a little bit of spice in here. I mean, for us, it was like, you know, no spice, but like, I feel like, you know, this is good. This is good stuff. The other thing I've noted here is this match funding for technology actually funds like a lot of our state infrastructure, like HIEs, APCDs. He was saying systems that can detect fraud, waste, and abuse, and Medicaid. Like, I don't know, you know, that's the thing. Devil's in the details, and there are a lot of details.
There are a lot of details.
Yeah, and Lisa, here's the thing. Everybody's talking about cutting Medicaid, but apparently we want to keep some stuff in the ACA. What?
A good surprise. You know, I'm a big fan of preventative health services and public health generally, and what's in the ACA that must be covered by health insurers for no cost sharing are certain preventative things that are like well supported with evidence to be really important, like, you know, getting particular screenings like cancer screenings and stuff like that. So, you know, that's exciting. Basically, they're saying we are going to continue to require insurers who are part of the ACA to cover these preventative screenings for no cost sharing, no cost to the patient. So that's good. That was exciting. This is the first positive thing I've read in a bit.
I feel like this is reasonable. I actually think when, you sent it to me, but then I saw it later, you know, because Lisa, I don't really read the news except for aggregation and news alerts on my phone. But I did even see on HTN, Health Tech Nerds, the comment was, "This seems positive."
Seems good.
Seems good.
All right. Yeah. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Another startup that I feel like everybody thinks is not useful, Function Health, valuation of $2.5 billion. They got more money. Okay, here's the thing. Like, I'm actually totally into this. Like,
you, of course you are. You are the target audience for any of these like worried health technology companies. Seriously.
Listen, if someone wants to melt,
she will buy a red light sauna. She will buy a full body scan. She will buy you name it. If you are you are selling something for very rich people to get themselves scanned or do some kind of wellness cure, Kat McDavitt, send her a free trial. She'll do it.
Yeah. Interview me for $10,000 an hour. I will make your product successful.
That's
Call
right.
me. Yeah. But like, okay, Lisa, but like for real, like who doesn't want a subscription to get all of the tests that you definitely don't need? Like if they want to say, "Hey Kat, we released a new test. We're going to measure your telomeres." I would be like, "Oh, fuck yeah." Like, absolutely. How much money do you want right now? Like, yeah, I mean, but I also recognize this is not targeted at people who really need anything.
Here's my thing. Like, I'm not anti, like, sure, if somebody wants to start a company and they can, like, you know, build a customer base, you know, whether they're that other scanning company or this scanning company or whatever, cool, like that's fine. But let's be real about what things are worth. It's insane that this company, which is basically just ordering a bunch of tests in bulk for you, is valued in the market, valued based on the money they've raised at $2.5 billion. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah,
what is even money?
It's kind of a lot. Not to get into consumer behavior and patient behavior stuff, which is a thing I think about a lot. But really the barrier to these companies being successful is, are you going to make me leave my house to spend money on you?
Yeah.
Because if the answer is yes, then I'm probably not going to do it. So, if we're talking about the worried wells, these are the things we got to worry about here, y'all.
Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah. And in non-worried well news, Louisiana is leading the charge.
Back to bummer news on public health. Listen, I just really love not having polio. I really love not having measles. I really love not having diseases that we know how to stop in their tracks. And we made such progress against. Public health is awesome, you guys. It's really great to not have to worry about getting measles. It's just stuff like that. If you just look back in history, Mitch McConnell just announced his retirement from the Senate. That guy's a polio survivor. Like, that's amazing, right? But he also knows personally, like firsthand, how crappy it was when everyone was getting polio and there was a real risk for kids and their parents were terrified because like a certain number of kids would just get polio and a certain number would just die or be stuck in an iron lung for the rest of their life. Like this is not ancient history, right? Like we forget very quickly. Not getting polio is awesome. Public health is awesome. I don't like this.
Not getting polio is awesome. I feel like that's the kind of translation to the people like me we all need to hear.
But lest you think I am just some kind of weird like government control loving, like she wants to make everyone get all the vaccinations in the world. That is not true. In fact, my own father did the research himself and came out on the side of science and fought for me to get a killed polio vaccine, not a live polio vaccine, because there was a very, 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 very small chance of risky outcomes. This is back in the day, right, you guys? This is back in the 80s. I realize that is ancient history for the children of the today, but back in the 1980s, this is what they had to do around polio vaccines. So I am okay with people asking questions, but the answer is getting a vaccine.
Yeah. Lisa, maybe you are controlled by the government. I don't know.
Probably. All right.
Moving on. Speaking of the government and control and maybe the private sector being in charge or maybe not. So Lisa, also so we got another slide in here later, but like the stock market kind of took a dump today, like in case anyone noticed. And allegedly a lot of that's because of United. So Lisa, tell us why United tanked today, and also tell us if this is related to all those great stat news articles we read about United and their risk.
I mean, there's been a good amount of investigation, right, about the practices and policies of Medicare Advantage plans. United being, of course, our largest company in this space by a lot. And so they have a big Medicare Advantage business. So they will be very affected if the government decided to really be very, very critical of Medicare Advantage or Medicare billing in general, right? So if the government is quote unquote cracking down on billing practices, United will absolutely be affected because they're such a large player in the space. But also in the last 2 days, the news about massive layoffs at United also hit, like 30,000 plus people. So I have no doubt that is part of the story around United and why the market might be getting a little bit concerned if one of our biggest players in the space is doing massive layoffs. So that's aligned with this. Is it because of this? I don't know all the answers here, but there's a lot going on at United right now. And so this is kind of a big deal. If Medicare Advantage is becoming very quickly less of a very highly profitable line of business for payers, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, especially because from what we at least theoretically understand, not that anyone understands anything these days, the Medicare Advantage will be a big focus of the new administration. So interesting stuff. Yeah, and United is the largest operator of Medicare Advantage, from what I understand, as well, right? So,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah. We'll see what happens there. Oh yeah, and then speaking of United, I think everybody saw on the X / everywhere, there was a surgeon who posted about being pulled out of surgery to justify a surgery that was in process. And
Dr. Potter, a breast cancer surgeon, who is she's a board certified plastic surgeon who does a particular type of breast reconstruction for cancer. Dr. Potter in Texas.
It sounds like United sent her a nasty letter and was like, "Bitch, you're a liar.
You lied.
Take down all your stuff. Go to hell." And then this guy, our lovely friend Bill Ackerman, posted something about all of her claims. And it sounds like everybody's sending cease and desist and nasty letters to each other. All kinds of letters are going out. And then it turns out at the end of the day, Bill said, United is wrong.
It's a complicated story, but basically, like, United also threatened Bill, who is he's a player, he's an active person in the investment world and in the administration as well. So it was a big deal when he put himself out there to kind of defend this doctor, and his conclusion is like in depth. He talks through it in great detail in this post. It is one of those X posts that's like extremely long.
We didn't have a lot of slides. We don't have enough slides.
A lot of stuff.
That's why Lisa's telling you what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's worth reading, but also to read the follow-up in Bloomberg about what actually happened. Like, nobody's really quite telling the truth. It's very complicated, unsurprising, because, United has such a vertically integrated business, and there are also problems on the provider side, right? This doctor was doing her surgery in an HCA hospital, which is very, very expensive and charges a huge amount of money for, different types of stays, right? There's all kinds of details. Like, again, like, nobody is innocent when it comes to the business of healthcare, right? Like, everybody's trying to do something. I mean, obviously, I think the doctor was in her rights to like call this out without a doubt, but this is just one of those stories. It's the flashpoint, right? About what's happening in our system.
Yeah. Well, everybody just wants to kind of sue each other instead of like,
correct.
Instead of like just dealing with the problem and telling the truth, everybody's sending the cease and desist and trying to sue each other and whatever the hell. So, which, isn't great.
Very American. Very American.
Yeah, it is very American. I just think maybe there's a better approach. Like, I don't know. But whatever. Sounds like this is a bunch of bullshit. And then, speaking of the market tanking, United going down pretty far today. HIMSS, and Lisa, you were saying, according to your Slacks that I maybe just read 30 minutes ago, that this is because the FDA was like, "No, we're good on GLP-1 stuff. Like, we got it. We're fine."
They officially declared that, Ozempic, semaglutide, and I think some of the others are out of shortage. And because of this, all of the companies that were like, "We're going to do compounding meds," as we've talked about extensively on the show, maybe are not going to do that anymore. I don't think they can. Yeah.
I was thinking about, that, well, obviously, like, how I feel about these GLP-1s and, basically the state of America, but also related sort of AI, right? Like big, like, and I feel like telehealth too during the pandemic, like blah, massive excitement. Everybody's in the bandwagon, blah, and like we talked about in the last show, like there's compression in price because there's more competition. Like, I know, I mean, at some point I figure not everyone is going to need all the AI. Like, there's going to be groups that consolidate and have fewer point solutions. And, I know we talked to some really good hardworking companies at Vive about this, but like, yeah, that's just not how like business works.
Well, I mean, I think just again, the further along we get, the more we're going to separate the hype from the reality. And like, what does it really mean for your business if you like basically just are a wrapper for ChatGPT, or if you do something else more meaningful? And I think just the market is going to learn more about these types of companies and what they do and how legitimate their solutions are, whether they're just like something very shallow, an AI tourist, as our friend Sergey says, or if it's something more meaningful, something that is a longer, something that they built themselves, that's based off of really quality data, that has really significant differences to the status quo, right? All those things, right? That just takes time for the market to learn. I think it's gone. of course, if you were at Vive, or if you heard us talk about Vive, or you heard someone else talk about Vive, or read something, you can't go an inch, you can't go a centimeter smaller than that, a micron, without seeing AI everywhere, right? You just can't. It doesn't mean anything anymore. So tell me more. Like, what are you actually doing?
Yeah, that's so tricky. And I feel like no one can actually tell us what they're doing. I mean, maybe like 10% of people.
A couple.
But even, even the pitches we got and that we keep getting for HIMSS is a little, HIMSS is still a little bit more like infrastructure, like heavy, deep data stuff. So we're getting, we're getting more nerd pitches, which is cool. But for Vive, like 90% of them were like, come see our AI thing. We're an AI company. I'm like, you're not an AI company. You're like revenue cycle. Like that does AI
with AI. What does that mean?
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, that was exciting stuff. Hey, speaking of Sergey, I didn't make a slide because I didn't actually get through some of his posts. What did you think of his post on, or it wasn't a post, it was actually like a full on piece on your best friends at Hippocratic AI?
Yeah, so Sergey has published in I think his Substack is called Health AI Uncut. And you can check it out there. He has at least one very long, very detailed, very well researched post that goes into the sort of depths of this company, Hippocratic AI, that I've complained about a few times. Definitely recommend checking it out. Some really interesting things in there. I think the thing that I'm looking for more information on, that he reported on, or that he exposed through his writing, is that while Hippocratic AI's $9 AI nurses are allegedly live with multiple hospitals and health systems, that they are all being live supervised by $50 human nurses. And I have to imagine that that's because there's just way too much risk for a health system to have unsupervised, quote unquote, AI nurses. So I more to come. Definitely check out his stuff. Not making any claims here personally, but it's very interesting and kind of reinforces a little bit of my thinking here, which is that this stuff is so risky for things that actually could affect patients, right? That's my biggest concern. Like, we're talking about real human people here whose lives are are dealing with serious health situations, and I really don't want them to be harmed by sloppy or dangerous or unsafe things like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think about Hippocratic AI, and I don't know any of the people that he seems very angry at. We don't hang out, like they don't invite me to their parties and vice versa. Yeah, I think it is interesting, and I do think it's risky. I mean, on the other side of that, because I'm always like, what's the exciting thing here? I do think, it's exciting that people are trying new things, just that for patient-facing things, that does scare me a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I do plan on actually reading all of that at some point, and or telling everyone I did later and relying on your summary. But that's interesting stuff too. Yeah. So okay. Oh yeah. So Chai. Okay. So I thought, didn't the whole premise for Chai being around get abolished with the Trump administration? Weren't they like, we're not doing AI assurance labs, go to hell? And
well, so I mean, it says it right here.
More than that.
It says it right here. The White House has, announced on February 6th the call for public input. President Trump has revoked former President Biden's executive order on AI, which had a lot of AI assurance lab stuff in it. And it's replacing it with one that calls for focus on U.S. leadership in the sector and AI action plan. Okay, so not really sure what the difference is, but we'll see. So Chai is still working on their coalition and getting feedback from their coalition here. But yeah, it's a little confusing because I think there's definitely I think the Trump administration has been very much like, we don't want AI assurance labs. So what are we going to try that?
The other thing with I actually don't think anyone who we're used to having access has any access. So this announcement does not make me feel like they have access. It just feels like we're, I was just complaining about people writing letters. Like, who the hell cares? Jesus Christ. If you're not in some way, in some form of encrypted text communication with someone important in the administration, I feel like you kind of don't matter right now. Maybe later. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, are these guys still players? Is my question.
As I have noted many times on this show and in public and in private, probably whenever anyone even listens to me for 5 seconds, I'm like, why did we bother to do this executive order on AI when the administration was ending? What was the point?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know,
Let's
but I
move.
don't understand these moves, and it annoys me because a lot of time and energy, people's lives was spent on this, and it was gonna get thrown in the trash can, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's nothing. I mean, lots of things get thrown in the trash can, but usually they get thrown in the trash can with a little bit more, rigorous thought, I think. I mean, who knows? Maybe there was a plan here, and I don't know what the hell it is. Maybe there's smarter people than me. I don't know.
Maybe.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Maybe our special guest will tell us in a minute here.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to hymns. Like you heard us say, we got some really fun nerd pitches. I think, Melissa, how many spots do we have left? One? We have one spot left, which I think we're going to give to the person who just sent us an email, honestly, because that's going to be something dirty.
Me too.
Yeah. Huh. Anyway, so we're full of him. So like, I don't know, but I do believe if you try to bribe us, we will make room for you. I don't know. Like,
sure. Yes.
Presents, wine, chocolate, fancy clothing, cash, all those things work for us. So like, let us know, pop us a note. And then, we have a special guest coming up who I feel like, I don't know if we've gotten his opinion on the Freedom Health Data Network. I don't know, Lisa. Like, I don't know.
I still think it's pretty great.
So and we've got some other things like this is just a wrapper. We're just rebranding a thing here. We're just making it good. So I don't know. We'll see what he thinks about that. But our special guest did tell us that he has some dirty dirt. He's got the hot goss on what's going on, like in the real world with interoperability. So we're excited about that. And we also want to talk about, I think we have all received 100 million texts over the past 6 weeks about, oh my God, the federal government's centralizing all of the data exchange. We're going to have a federal data lake. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. And all that stuff. So it's interesting. We've talked a lot about that, Lisa. And then we got very strange confirmation from the inside that was in fact going to happen. But I think Ryan's going to tell us something different. So, who knows? No one, like we said,
listen, people can say whatever.
Shit.
Yeah. People can say whatever they want to say, but nobody really knows what's going to happen right now. You might have some, I've got the inside view, whatever. Okay. We'll see how things, shake up in reality. Yeah. That's a good question, Scott. What's our acronym for this? No acronym. Wow. No acronym.
We're working on it. Listen, Scott, it'll come to us. It'll come to us later. Maybe at hymns over a bottle of wine. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Right. Okay. So we're going to bring up our special guest, Ryan Howells, repeat guest on the Health Tech Talk Show. And we're going to leave us up for 1 minute while we get his opinion on our new logo for was previously known as TEPCA. What do you think?
I just wanted to see if it said, are Q-hymns real? That's really what I really wanted to say.
I don't know. Are they? Are they?
We're going to bring it back. What? We're going to bring it back.
What do you think? I think we should rebrand them too.
I love it. It's totally fine.
We have to rebrand them because isn't HHS and Velatura, aren't they fighting over US Q-hymn being trademarked?
Still are.
There is a lawsuit. There is an active lawsuit.
Yeah. So we'll just rebrand it. We'll just no more Q-hymns. We'll call them something else. There's no problem.
Fahidin doesn't roll off the tongue like Q-hymn. Fahidin. It'd be hard to be Fahidin.
Foodin. That's what Scott is saying. Foodin.
We got it. We're
gonna work on it. We're workshopping it.
But here's the problem. TEPCA sounds like we're on the Borg ship. It's not great, so we'll work on it. Like I said, you get what you pay for here. And this was a $0 endeavor.
Right.
So
that's right.
Yeah. We'll take this down. Ryan, introduce yourselves to our loyal fans. Yourself, not yourselves, unless you are more than one person.
Sure. Principal Leavitt Partners, been here for almost 10 years. Our claim to fame is we started the Caring Alliance. So getting patients more digital access to their healthcare data, where, when, and how they want to achieve their goals. And we've got about 70 participants, but we've also, it's a fire accelerator, but we've also ran the Helios project for public health, where we have run, let's see, what else have we done? We've done, state-based pilots for fire-based B2B data exchange. Basically, if it's fire, we have something to do with it in some way, shape, or form, but we also do federal policy and interoperability related topics across the board. FDA, it was interesting you mentioned the shortage list. The only reason Hims and Hers actually got on there and was able to do the compounding was because it was on the FDA shortage list. Otherwise, they would have violated patents. But because of the fact that it was on the FDA shortage list, that's where they were able to run those things. But they weren't telling people that they were on the shortage list, and it's all going to come to an end. But they knew it was going to come to an end at some point. So it's very fascinating. Yes.
Well, I guess, short-term gain potential.
True.
Who knows? I guess we just ignored the last half of that, which is long-term loss, but whatever. So Ryan, are you the national coordinator?
I don't know. Am I? We don't have breaking news.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
By the way, I do have news to break, unless you have broken it already.
Who knows?
So there were 3 appointments at the end of the Biden administration.
We know this. They're gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're already done. You've already broken.
Well, we didn't. Well, did we actually? We may have reported that before it was reported. Did we?
Probably. Ryan, why don't you just keep talking in case any of our loyal fans missed the story.
Say it again. And tell us, other than the fact that it's dumb that they got these jobs and then got unjobbed, tell our loyal fans why it matters that they're uninvited to their jobs.
Well, so there were 3 jobs that were appointed as career officials at the end of the Biden administration: the chief technology officer, the chief information officer, and the chief data officer for HHS. Now, previously, and there's the chief AI officer too, but previously they were all appointed positions, and they were appointed under the secretary. Mickey and Secretary Becerra actually decided to put that under the national coordinator. So I think the news was that the chief technology officer and chief information officer was let go. The chief data officer,
not the chief information officer. The CIO is a separate person. It's the CTO, CDO, and CAIO.
Yes, but there was a new chief technology officer, if I remember correctly, that was actually appointed under HHS that actually came from our folks at Palantir. Actually, there was an ex-Palantir employee.
That's the CIO, not the CTO. I know it's confusing. They keep mixing. It should be the CIO is the person who just was appointed, who is the ex-Palantir guy.
Yes.
Not CTO.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's so I think that's where the rumors are coming from, Lisa, about whether or not they're going to build a big database in the sky and all that fun stuff. So,
and the answer is yes.
So what do you think? What do you think, Ryan? You think the rumors are true?
Well, I think you got to kind of understand the history, kind of how we got here. So over between November and December, there were really 2 parallel processes that were taking place. There was the process that actually Kennedy's team was taking. And remember, Kennedy had all of those people that were supporting him from the presidential run that he made. So he was actually vetting out candidates across all of HHS. And then Trump's team was actually going through their own process too. They were conflicting. And so as they were conflicting, that really didn't get resolved till probably sometime in December, which pushed us back in terms of the appointees and where they were at. They started to come together a little bit more in January, and now they're kind of running a similar process going forward, although Kennedy's team is kind of vetting out a lot of the candidates themselves. So they're starting to get people in place, but that put us behind. It also put us behind because they weren't running a traditional process as far as making sure that it runs through OPM and some of the other things that need to get done. They were kind of running their own independent process too. So that put us back probably at least 2 months. And in a transition time frame, that's like an eternity. So people keep asking me the question, why hasn't folks been named? National coordinator is a perfect example. What they typically do in a transition, just for folks that don't know, is that they'll appoint basically an interim. And that interim is someone that's already there. And so everyone assumed that Steve was going to be the interim, Steve Posnack. But the interim was not named. And in fact, when the White House executive order came out that had all the interims that are on there, ONC was not on there. And ONC, as Mickey likes to say, which he's totally right about, is a day one position, meaning they have to be in on the first day that the president gets elected. And so, not only did they not appoint the national coordinator by that time frame, they also did not appoint an interim. And so ONC's been in the state of limbo since November, which has been very difficult. Lisa, you were going to say something?
Well, we actually on the show, not this week, but on a previous week, we had some receipts that were sent to us, some digital receipts sent to us from a loyal fan of the show, documenting the first moment when the acting or the interim or whatever was on the HHS, on the ASTP website, and then taken down. So there was a moment in time where maybe there was an interim, an acting named, and then it was unnamed. So we actually have some fun digital footprints about an inkling of that process internally.
Profiles were scrubbed.
Never official.
Profiles were scrubbed.
It was never official. So I think the idea here is like, why is that the case? And I think there's a bunch of reasons for it, but I think first and foremost, it probably wasn't a priority under this administration. They're looking at doing other things, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, getting Oz in place, right? Doing all of that other stuff that they want to make happen. And, they also were obviously interviewing folks to make that happen as well. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
What do you think? The big rumor is, a lot of maybe these agencies can't get unalived, right? Like USAID is like not unalived; it just got carved out like a pumpkin. What do you think is going to happen to ONC?
Well, so you have to think about, Kat, like for federal policy works in decades, right? So you look at high tech. High tech was a decade-long policy, right? That's how long it took actually to get that kind of penetration. You look at APIs was actually more than a decade-long policy, right? And we're still not where we need to be on API front. But then you think about what is like the next decade on health IT. And that's kind of where you kind of need to think about it. And I think, honestly, that's where the administration's starting to think about it too. Like, what is the next decade in health IT? What does it need to be? What type of interoperability do we need over the next decade? What do you think? What do you both think? What do you think we need over the next decade in terms of what's going to be required and also what's going to be needed from an industry perspective?
Well, that's why you're here. You tell us.
I wanted you guys to chime in, right?
Well, listen, I don't know if you watch this show. This is what we talk about every week. Give us a freaking break.
Well, my opinion on this is that one of the things I got lost a little bit in translation in the last administration is the how was more important than the what. So what I mean by that is how was TEFCA, but what was Alex's CMS rule, right? Alex's CMS
love
rule.
Alex. We love Alex.
We love Alex.
Love that girl.
Totally love Alex. But what was the actual CMS rule, right? And that rule, now we're a little over 20 months away from that rule supposedly being live, which is not happening. But that's the what. That actually is what needs to happen. That's FHIR-based B2B data exchange that has to happen at scale. And the challenge is where TEFCA is today. TEFCA is going to be Care Quality 2.0, and it's going to send back the CCDA data for the time being, because it's got to move all of that traffic from standard care quality. Epic's going to make that move. Athena, Commonwealth, all the other ones are going to make that move. And they're going to make that move onto TEFCA, but that's essentially just going to be Care Quality 2.0. We haven't moved to FHIR, and we certainly haven't moved to healthcare operations with payers and providers, and we certainly haven't moved to IAS either. So if you couple all that together, you say, well, how do we get to a CMS rule that's required by 2027 if in fact we're just going to move to TEFCA, which is really going to be CCDA for the foreseeable future? That's the challenge right now. So I think there's going to be a question, at least I know that the administration is already asking questions about how they can expedite a FHIR-based transactions for individual access services and for B2B. And you say it's probably, at least in the short term, maybe not in the long term, but in the short term, it may not be a TEFCA-based infrastructure for FHIR because we're not quite ready yet. We don't have the rules in place, the SOPs in place. We don't know what's going to happen. So what do you do? How do you actually bring those two worlds together? And it probably makes little more sense to try to figure out a way where CMS and ONC could actually work more closely together than they do today. how does that actually start to look like long term? That's where we have to kind of ask ourselves to try to expedite this process. Because remember, ONC can enforce these rules. CMS has to come through and enforce the rules. And also, we had a great actually conversation with you with EHRA about why IAS is not working around the country. And there are certainly some EHRs that aren't supporting it, et cetera. That still, I think, exists, mainly for the smaller EHRs themselves. But for the larger ones, they're very much supportive of it. But then they'll go and actually ask their providers to turn on IAS. And you know what they're telling them? No, we're not going to turn it on. We're just not going to do it. And they're like, you have to do it. Here's the rule. They'll go through an educational session with them. It's actually part of HIPAA right of access. This is something you're going to have to do. And what happens is that they're just not turning on individual access services. And so then
you and what army? You and what army is the question in terms of, I understand, right? They're delaying because it is really not, it doesn't work well with their systems of governance and their vision for patient access. And they rightfully are looking at this landscape and saying, who's going to enforce this? And now it's technically unfeasible. That's the problem is when you were saying how and what, I was saying in my mind, implementation and policy. You were saying something a little bit different. From my perspective, the implementation, including the motivations for those provider systems to do this work, is also what matters. You and what army?
You're making my argument, Lisa, which is like you've got to figure out a way where providers, payers, and the EHR vendors can all, right, and even pharmacy can come under one roof. So you can say, look, we're not playing around anymore. And certainly you've seen with this administration, they're not playing around with anything. They're taking an axe to all kinds of different things. So then you say, well, what does that start to look like? And so I think you'll see some of that potentially come into place. And then you've also got to say to yourself, can't we get started with potentially point-to-point FHIR-based exchange? And the answer is yes. If we had a FHIR endpoint directory, we could actually get started with point-to-point FHIR-based exchange.
It sounds like you're saying we don't need TEFCA, Ryan. And I'm hearing you say that, and in my brain, like maybe I'm filling in the gaps here, but I'm hearing you say like, we could just leapfrog this whole thing. I feel like you're saying that.
So, can we? Obviously we can, but wait.
21st Century Cures requires a trusted exchange framework and common agreement.
I read it. We did that. Also, laws don't matter right now.
Hang on.
All right, you tell me.
But they do not define exactly what that is. In fact, they even say they could point to something that already exists, right? And so the idea is, how do you start to point to something that then it maybe either already exists or something we want to build in the future? I'm not saying we do away with all of National TEFCA. As I've talked to the players, they don't necessarily want to do that, but they also recognize there's got to be other options. There's got to be other options. Right? You could say Commonwealth is a form of TEFCA. You could say eHealth Exchange is a form of TEFCA. You could say Care Quality. You could go down the list of folks that are forms of TEFCA where you could say.
So why did we make a new one? Like, why did we spend all this money and all these people and I had to make t-shirts? Like, why did we make a new one?
The goal was network of networks, okay? And the goal was, so remember, there were three main reasons why TEFCA, at least to me, there were three main reasons why TEFCA was started. Number one, single technical connection. Number two, a single data use agreement. And number three is record location services, all right? So those are the three big reasons why people join, at least the folks that I have spoken to. So if you say that
doesn't have an RLS natively, Commonwealth has an RLS. Like individual HIEs usually have an RLS of some sort. PCDH has an RLS.
Yeah, they've got flavors of it. Everybody's got flavors of it. Yeah, it's not maybe a traditional RLS. Depends on how you define RLS, et cetera. Yes, I guess the idea here is how could you do that? Where it would have a situation where. I love the peanut gallery, actually. It keeps popping up. It's awesome.
This is our fan club right here. There's so much nerd talk going on. I love it.
Awesome.
Oh my God.
Well, I guess my point is, like, could we have multiple, could we define, Michael's going to define that actually too for us as well.
I think Michael should be national coordinator if that
Yeah,
still
Michael
exists.
for national coordinator.
Yeah.
Here, what? I don't know if he wants to take the pay cut, but
I don't think so. He does.
dirty job. Someone's got to do it, Michael.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that could be interesting. We'll also see. I think provider directory actually could come back and be a priority as well, but in a different way. We're starting to. You'll see this a little bit later from us. We're writing a letter too, Kat. So it's going to be fun.
Stop writing letters. Just call someone.
Well, we're doing both. So I guess the point is that like provider directory. Let's talk about provider directory for a second. The challenge with provider directory has always been the fact that you have trusted the fact that the provider is going to keep their information up to date, which has always been challenging. In fact, the National Healthcare Directory pilot in Oklahoma is doing the same thing right now, which probably isn't going to happen. And the other challenge is you've got this thing called NPIs that don't work, right? They're not actually tied to a person. They're tied to a billing group. They're tied to whatever, a practice area. But you think about this, you could actually build a new provider directory using two things as your baseline. One, you could use digital identity, which, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of, where you could actually identity proof the actual person themselves, just like they're doing with IAS. And you could actually identity proof that person. Once you've identity proofed that person, you could tie their FHIR endpoint to that individual. And if you do those kind of two things, then all that metadata that you have that needs to be kept updated could actually be tied to the person, which allows for you to keep that up to date more every time you log in, or other things where could be able to prompt it. But you could start to, I guess the point is, this is an opportunity to rethink the problems that we've had forever. And I'm hopeful that folks are going to get excited about, I know not everything the administration, no one's going to be excited about everything the administration does. I'm just saying it does give you a chance to start to rethink the problems that we've had forever. Like if we could start with a little bit of a whiteboard and what would we do differently, I think that becomes really interesting because they're certainly ready to do stuff. And it would be
so what I'm hearing is TEFCA is going to go away and be redefined as existing things in the market that are private sector, number one. Number two, we're going to leapfrog, the previous vision of this with, FHIR first work. The why we're doing this and how we're going to get people is through CMS work, through Medicare for the most part. And it's very likely, even though you're not saying it, that I'm understanding from you as well that the work of ONC is going to move under CMS. Got it? I think we got it.
I didn't say
got it.
That was true. No.
Oh, but I said that. So like anyone who's listening, that's me interpreting what's going on.
Sometimes we're wrong. Often wrong, never in doubt. That's at least my tagline. Lisa's usually right, but whatever. You just gotta be. You just gotta portray confidence here.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
I think they're going to do TEFCA differently. I do think they're going to do it differently. I think they're also going to focus more on FHIR, for sure, similar to Trump 1, right, to make that happen. But again, you can't necessarily focus on FHIR on a network approach across the entire country until you get CCDA right. So we don't really have CCDA right today. So we got to figure that out. And once we figure that out, then we can do that. But we could actually run FHIR in parallel and do it in a different way with the endpoints, do point-to-point interaction, at least initially. I think the challenge, Lisa, has been we thought that trust, maybe could be mandated or regulated, which it can't. Like you're going to have to, this is really hard stuff. You're going to have to figure out point to point before you start figuring out network to network. That becomes really hard to do, at least on the payer provider side. On the provider to provider side, there's a lot of, already precedent that's out there that has worked, but last summer did a lot of damage. It did a lot of damage to a lot of folks.
Oh, we're talking. Yeah, I was like, wait, what happened? It was hot. Ryan is referring to our loyal fans. He is referring to the Particle Epic scandal, and then the realization that apparently many on-ramp vendors were pulling data for purposes that were not treatment. So,
and the realization that the providers who were actually clients that were on the network didn't realize exactly how the network worked. And then now that they're finding out how it worked, they're like, I don't know if we like this. And so,
right.
A lot of health tech companies of various stripes, formed or were looking to get and use data as part of their work. And they were told things that were incorrect. They signed up with parties not so forthcoming or weren't doing things totally legally or above board. And they learned about it in a bad way, and things kind of went downhill. So like, this is why it matters to the broader health tech ecosystem. All the nerd, inside baseball things we're talking about is that these things are all basically up for grabs, as Ryan is saying. Like, I think things are realigned, and, is it good? Is it bad? I mean, I think we were already in kind of a not great place with it because of all the problems with the trust networks that occurred, with the national trust networks that occurred last year. So,
well, Ryan, I just saw on the internet, are you chairing Care Quality, the steering committee, or what's your role there?
Vice chair.
Okay, you're vice chair.
Yeah.
Aren't you you're with one of our friends, Rob, right?
Yeah, Rob at FX.
Like that guy. So it's a question for you. I know I've heard some scuttle that, Care Quality is trying to be better. They're trying to make sure that, they got more hardcore governance going on. But also a question for you, since you're like an insider here. One of the reasons, like I always tell people, if you don't have trust, you can have transparency. It does the same thing, but they are not the same thing. And so everybody was arguing that there was no transparency into Care Quality. You can't see disputes. Everything's very opaque. Are y'all working on that?
Oh yeah. In fact, I posted on LinkedIn what we were doing. Care Quality finally wrote a blog post. We just got into our roles. I think it was in October, November timeframe, something like that. And we obviously had the holidays we had to dance around, but we worked really hard to try to prioritize a list of issues on Care Quality, came up with a list of about a dozen. Knowing we couldn't work on a dozen, try to prioritize all of those dozen between the advisory council and the steering committee, came up with a list of 4. They're on our website. We're trying to make as fast a progress as we possibly can on those 4, which include a provider directory and on-ramping and onboarding and what does that look like. And so, yeah, I mean, we have to solidify trust on the network, and we have to do that, to your point, Kat, in a super transparent way. And it has to be, we have to have regular communication with everyone. And there's a lot of rumors and innuendo that are out there, and it's like, we just got to make that happen. And even not only just with Care Quality, but in TEFCA too. The challenge with TEFCA was that, there was these meetings that were happening. Nobody knew what they were, why they were happening. Only certain people were invited. No, there was no kind of things that were out there. It was hard to understand what was going on. So with the lack of, and I know why they were doing it. I'm not disparaging why they were doing it. They were trying to make fast progress very quickly. But the challenge was that all of this kind of opaqueness kind of added to the fuel to the fire of like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? And so there was really not a report out about what's going on. And that became problematic because even the folks that were participants in TEFCA were concerned, because they're like, I don't know how the rules are going to change or how it's going to affect my business or what does this look like? So again, it's one of those things where how do we find out ways to make progress while still being transparent about the progress we're making? We've got to balance.
Yeah, to that point about TEFCA, I know a lot of the community that signed on with the QHIN, a lot of the QHINs allegedly, I have not personally negotiated with any, are offering like, we'll give you a year free or whatever it is, to jump on board. And a lot of vendors did it because they felt like that's the only way they could get information and get a seat at the table. So non-paying customers, people signing up for a year, they have like no issues. There's no cancellation clauses, right? So, I have a couple questions about that. Why wasn't there more information? But then 2, is this a little bit like, the HIMSS bust today, where it looked like inflated numbers, people were supporting something more broadly than we thought, but really they're all just signing up and no one's actually using the framework at all. They're still pulling from Care Quality like usual.
Well, they are pulling from Care Quality, but that's largely because all the EHRs have not transitioned their clients over to TEFCA. So you are going to see a significant switch as far as kind of volume perspective from Care Quality to TEFCA in the very near future. Like in the next couple of months, you're going to see most of the traffic, at least half the traffic, move over. And Epic's already been public about this. By the end of the year, they're going to move all their clients over to TEFCA. And then you say, well, why is that the case? Well, one of the reasons that's the case is so that they can have someone in the room that's an authoritative figure on these really difficult, gnarly, conflict of interest, affect my business type topics, right? They're going to have somebody in the room that says, no, we're doing this, and this is the way we're going to do it, and here's where we're going to go, rather than trying to build consensus is super important. I'm in the consensus business, but at some point you do have to have somebody in the room saying, no, we've got to go. Like, we've got to make a decision and move. Mickey was great about doing that at the end of the last administration. I think the challenge is that it was a little bit too much of this is where we're going to go, and may not have had everyone on board. And so that caused the confusion in the marketplace about what's going on there, who's doing what, what's happening behind the curtain type of a thing. And that, coupled with what was happening in the private sector, those two things caused significant mistrust in terms of how this is going to operate. That's why, as we're thinking about this kind of new start, I think we have to think about it in terms of how could we make the most progress the fastest in a very transparent way, to your point, Kat. And to me, that's getting that FHIR endpoint registry out there and allow people to use the existing data use agreements that they have and actually start to exchange data with each other. Like, let's do that first. Let's figure out how to do that. And once we can do that, let's go to a network of network approaches. My biggest challenge is I don't think you can start with a network of networks approaches. You have to start actually with this point to point, getting that up and running before you can move to something else.
Ryan, I have to say, I am like,
go ahead.
No, I'm actually, you know what? I don't like hard disagree with you on many topics, but I super agree with you on this one. Like,
I was gonna
again,
say, you haven't been mad. Your face isn't changing. Like, you're like, seem like you're
what's
good.
happening, Ryan?
Well,
we are on the same page.
Well, hey, Ryan, question for you, because like we've been talking a lot, and Lisa and my Signal and Marco Polo chats, and we've been talking all about like, isn't it so weird that the Republican administration is pro-centralized infrastructure, right? Especially for health data, especially when we got like what happened to states' rights. Like, I'm confused, but I did. So talk to us about your approach and how it does empower the states, because there's lots of like, I believe in our country's system. So
I don't. It's speculation about whether this is a centralized infrastructure or not. That's a lot of speculation right now. What I would say, Kat, is I'll tell you our experience. Our experience is on the CMS rule and trying to get payers and providers in the same room. And the first thing you do when you invite payers and providers to the same meeting is they say, I'm not going to show up. And then when you try to convince them, we're not going to talk about contracting, they're like, oh, he's probably lying to us. I don't even know who this Ryan guy is. And then they show up to the meeting, and we have a 3-hour meeting. I'm not kidding. We've done this in like a dozen states. We have a 3-hour meeting, Kat, and then they're like, don't say anything for the first half of the meeting because they're afraid that the organization across the table from them is going to use that in a contracting dispute with them. So I'm not blaming them for that. I'm just saying that's the state of healthcare where we're in today. What I would tell you is that once we get past that, once we get to a level of saying, look, this is not going to be held against you in contracting. We've all got to do it anyway because of the CMS rule. We've all got to work together, for example, on prior auth or clinical data exchange, payer data exchange. Once we get to that level, then it becomes a really robust, great discussion because it's going to help everybody, payers, providers, and patients. Great, let's do that, right? And I think you asked about kind of vibe, like the conversations I was hearing on the floor were amazing, like awesome, amazing. Like, let's take prior auth, for example. Why the heck are we doing prior auth? Number one. Number two, why don't we just take the prior auth clinical guidelines and put them in the EHR? Like, that would be great.
Right.
We wouldn't have to call and do all this crazy stuff.
They're going to unalive it. I think the new administration will unalive prior auth. I freaking hope so.
Well, I mean, you can't get rid of it because it's private sector. The actuaries are going to freak out. I'm just saying the guidelines themselves, why would you do the back and forth anymore? Why don't you just put it in the thing? Then you say this claims processing. We have the technology. We could do real-time claims processing. Let's get out of that business too. There's kind of all of these things where it's interesting that the financial pressures, you could argue whether it's more on payers or providers, but it's financial pressures on both sides right now. It is significant. So because of that, they're coming to.
But it's an arms race, though, right? Like they are in an arms race against each other, right? Like my AI is going to fight your AI. Like that's literally where we are today.
But it's a finite pie, Lisa. That's the challenge. It's a finite pie. So they're all scheduled to try to go after each other. What I'm just telling you is it's opening up ideas, opening up new solutions, things that used to be proprietary. They're like, no, let's figure out a way to do this, right? And
Well,
I
Michael
that's
Marchant would
what-
like to tell you that blockchain is part of the solution. He thinks it should be smart contracts.
Everyone should be on
Just-
a blockchain.
just saying
Everybody should be on the blockchain. That's
Well,
right.
wait till we have
That
our
would
meme
solve all the
coin.
problems.
It's
No,
gonna be good.
A blockchain with AI. If we could do those two things, it would be magic. Like every problem would be solved in the whole world.
I completely agree, and that's what everyone on X tells me when they talk about the Web3. So hey, so three more things, two of which are questions. Kevin, listen, I appreciate all your smart person comments here as usual. We have asked you to come on this show like 3 times, and you've been like, wow, I'm a background.
Yeah,
you should
Kevin,
probably just come on the show. So 2 more questions for you, Ryan, and then we're probably out of time here. But so don't talk too much about these. But the first one is, rumors have it that during the Biden administration, there were Mickey Little L lobbied CMS quite often to try to get a COP or some sort of other mandate for TEFCA, and they didn't ever do it. So why do you think that they never did it?
Because the agencies haven't agreed to be on the new TEFCA. That's your quick answer.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because they don't trust it yet.
Trust or transparency. That's what I'm talking about. Someone's what's going on? Okay, great. Second is
the Health Exchange. It took them a decade to sign the DRSA. So
That's right.
Did they do it in 2 years? I mean, this is brand new, right? This is something that's brand new. I'm just saying, I don't think the agencies are at a place yet where they're actually totally bought in on the idea that they're going to sign something new after it took them 10 years to sign the DRSA. Anyway.
Yeah, not easy to get that DRSA signed.
Yeah, as you said, decades. And then the second is just like individual access, like in general, like how like I understand like technically those things can happen, blah, blah, blah. But like how like market influence perception, how do we make that actually happen?
Okay, so total shameless plug. It's not for me.
Love it. Love shameless plugs.
You've got to go to HIMSS. You've got to go to the Interoperability and HIE forum. There will be news made there on the progress we've made on IAS on TEFCA, and it is awesome. All right. So you got to go, and then there's going to be a demo that's out there to see it. But Kat, we've actually solved the problem. And it's what's fascinating about it is we've now provided a way where patients can get access from anywhere in the country. And it's really exciting stuff. In fact, on our website, you can see a little schmidgen of it. Schmidgen. There's a Friday afternoon for you. On the website, where we recorded the Karen Alliance meeting in January, and it's actually got some stuff. That's not the ultimate solution, but it's a step in that direction. So it's really exciting. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, shameless plug on my part too, of course. Brendan Keeler, friend of the show, will be the keynote speaker for the Interoperability and HIE Forum. I will be following that in a fireside chat, I want to say, that I'm moderating. Lots of other great people. If you're gonna go to HIMSS or you can't afford the entire HIMSS pass, the Interoperability and HIE pre-conference forum is a much smaller amount, and it is just one day, the Monday. So come, it's gonna be really cool. Lots of cool stuff.
Yeah. And I'm not doing anything smart at HIMSS, but I am throwing a rager of a party. So look forward to seeing you both there. It's full, by the way, but I feel like Maxine will give me more spots if I beg, so, whatever. But yeah, we'll be talking about nerd stuff there in black tie and a mask. Ryan, I hope you read the instructions.
I know, I've got to read a black tie in Vegas. I mean, like, what the heck is the black tie? That's totally inconvenient. I'm not going to shove it in my bag and bring it there.
Listen.
That's right. Free party, Ryan.
You gotta keep out the riffraff, Ryan. You gotta. If people are gonna go, they're gonna show up. You know what I'm saying? Like, Anish also was like, I'm not gonna bring a tux to Vegas, and I was like, all right, then don't come. And then he was like, I RSVP'd. I also gave him that voice because this was all over text. So, that's exactly how I think he was saying it.
That's right.
So, yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, hey, Ryan, this was awesome. Thank you for all the nerd stuff and all the deep insights. We are delighted that you did not confirm, but we feel like you confirmed in our hearts all the things that we were thinking. So that's fantastic. And we look forward to seeing if you are, in fact, the national coordinator. I don't know.
We'll find out.
TBD.
You guys are very flattering. You're awesome. Thank you for considering the fact that that's the case. You're the best. I can't wait to see you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
see
y'all.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.